Chapter 22. Josh and Rockne ran from the train after it entered the station, and then mounted their Bethels. They raced toward the mountains as the ground shook beneath them. Josh could see the air grow orange in the distance to his left as lava erupted from cracks in the earth. They were most definitely running out of time. They grew closer to the mountains. The Bethels panted and foamed at the mouth, but they kept running. They were almost there. Suddenly, a crack opened directly in front of them. The Bethels tried to stop as lava shot into the air. Rockne flew off his mount, toward the geyser. The jar with Rapatha's essence was lost with him, as he was engulfed in the fire. The little island shook. Andor spread his feet farther apart to keep from falling. Anila tried to approach, but Andor suddenly flashed his knife before Maximus's eyes. She stopped in her tracks. "I never asked for any of this," Andor told her. "I never asked for my son to be killed by Dargo's plague. What would you have done, Anila, were you in my shoes?" "I am in your shoes. You have my son." He chuckled. "I suppose you're right. I never thought of it that way. You can't possibly know what it's like to lose a child until you actually lose him." He pressed the knife against the baby's throat. "After I released Dargo from his prison, he did what he promised. He cured everyone of the plague. It was too late for my son, though. If you'd listened to me when I begged you, Joffrey would still be alive." Andor spoke quietly, refusing to yell and scream. Deep down, he knew this had more effect than acting hysterical. He could see it on Anila's face. "Nothing you do or say will bring my son back. I will not live the rest of my life, however long that is, knowing you and your family are safe and happy. You don't deserve that." With that, he raised the knife high, preparing to strike Maximus. In that moment, he heard Anila and Shay scream. He saw, from the corner of his eye, the guards racing toward him. But they would be too late. The knife came down, and everything seemed to slow to a crawl. Andor smiled down at the baby, and the baby smiled up at him. Before the knife could strike Maximus's heart, however, something erupted from the water behind Andor and quickly snaked its way up the hill. It was a Hexel. The dwarf, Victor, was riding it. Someone ran up to Andor while he was distracted and ripped the baby from his grip. He turned and saw Anila running backward, hugging her child to her. Andor raised the knife once again and threw it at them as hard as he could. The Hexel slithered between Andor and Anila. The dwarf stood, his arms raised, and took the knife into his chest. Anila screamed as the dwarf fell to the ground. Even in the chaos of the scene, Andor knew the knife had found Victor's heart. The dwarf was dead. Josh ran down to Rapatha's cavern and saw Astrid floating before her. "When did you get back?" he asked. "A few minutes ago," Astrid replied. "Did you get what you needed to help Rapatha?" "Yes, but it was destroyed. I couldn't do anything to stop it. Rockne's dead. He and the essence were burned in lava." To Rapatha, he said, "I'm so sorry. We had it, and now it's gone." "It's all right, Josh. I thank you for trying." Josh couldn't help it. He cried. Astrid cried with him. The cavern shook around them. Crystals from the ceiling rained down and crashed in the garden below. "I met your father," Josh told Rapatha. "He told me something about how I could help Astrid's father. He told me I had to give my energy away to something that's the opposite of me. He called me a negative energy, that I had to give it to a positive. Rapatha, I think you are that positive." "Josh," Astrid said, "what are you talking about?" "I have to give my energy to Rapatha. I realized it earlier, before we went for the necklace, but I was too afraid to accept it at the time. I'm not afraid anymore, Astrid. What happens to you, though? I die. Forever this time. Josh! She tried to speak, but couldn't find the words. It's all right, Astrid. I'm ready. For real this time. Tears spilled from her eyes, but she nodded. Josh took off Rapatha's necklace and handed it to Astrid. This belongs to you now. He smiled. Now that he was in spirit form again, he flew closer to Rapatha's light. He didn't know quite what to do, but he'd seen enough movies and read enough books to know sacrifices were usually as easy as just walking straight. In this case, he had to fly straight. He had taken so many lives he'd had no right to, and the burden had weighed heavily on him. He thought sacrificing himself to stop Dargo would make up for what he had done, but he ended up returning as a nature demon and harming Naoki and Astrid in the process. In life and in death, he harmed those around him. But now he had the chance to give life rather than take it. Rapatha was the only life form he encountered that he couldn't harm. He could only help. To Astrid, he said, "Tell the others I'll miss them." To Rapatha, he asked, "Are you ready?" "Yes, Josh, and thank you." "Here goes nothing." He floated toward Rapatha's glowing embrace.